located on Canton Center Road, just north of Ford Road and south of Warren Road. It was on the west side. It was 5903 North Canton Center Road, Plymouth, Michigan. No zip back then. It's quite old. It has a lot of history, a lot of families, prominent families that lived there, a lot of names. There was a government patent that was in 1831, but it wasn't used as a home. It was just land purchase, and it was sold to the Stevens family, and they built the log cabin, and that was 1842. There was a little log cabin there, and they lived there with their family for until, let's see, it was 1871, and another landowner of the area, John Harmon, he owned about 100 acres besides his farm on Warren Road and Canton Center, where he grew up. And it was when his father passed away, it was split between his brother Spencer and himself. But then this property came available, and he bought it. And he did a land split of three different properties. One went to the George Bartlett, that this house is related. He grew up here. And then the middle one went to Arline and his daughter. And then the third partial went to his younger son, Julius. But we're talking about only Arline property. Mm-hmm. And it was about 30 acres. It was 30 acres. And then she lived in the log cabin, and she was married to Benjamin Connor. And then it burnt, and they built on the same footprint the salt box house that I grew up in. And a salt box house is kind of a New England style home, not familiar with Canton. It's flat in the front, and it goes up to a high peak, and then it has a sharp roof that goes down to a one-story. So it's 2-story in front and 1-story in the back. It's quite a large house. You would think a family would, I think they wanted a family, but Benjamin and Arline didn't have a family there. And he passed away, and then she remarried Mr. Smythe. Now, Titus Smythe and her had 2 children. They had Edna May, and they had John Earl, and they raised their 2 children there, and then they sold it to the Blackmore families. Now, the farm has always been known, as long as I can remember, as called the Blackmore Farm. So I even call it today, I live in the Blackmore Farm. So that's where I kind of have the history of the Blackmores. The Blackmores bought the house in 1908, and they were there until 1945. And unfortunately, his wife passed away. Avis Blackmore passed away in childbirth. So the girls, she had daughters, and they had to take care of a newborn baby, which was a hardship for them. But they survived. They all became educated and world travelers. So I'm really proud of the girls. But he remarried, and he married Alice. And Alice Blackmore started the gardens, the beautiful gardens on the Blackmore farm. And so I used to call it the Alice's Garden for years. Blackmores did a lot to the house. They raised it off the foundation of the stones, and they created a full basement, which was gorgeous. And it was so you had the cellar, and that was down about 6 steps. Then you went down 6 more steps to the basement, so it was quite deep, had very thick walls, and they lived down there. They had a kitchen down there. They kept the house nice and clean upstairs, only for company. They cooked downstairs. They had a side door that came in from the gardens and the farm. And so they actually ate down there. They played down there. And so the house upstairs was, the granddaughter said the house upstairs was pretty well, like modern for the age, and that they were not allowed to play up there. They played in the basement or outside in the yard. But they were allowed to go upstairs up the steep steps to the 2 bedrooms, and there was a walk-in attic. And they were allowed to also play dolls in the attic like we did when we were there. So going out from their family, we went to the Ritter family. Now, the Ritter family and the Blackmore family, actually, I'm very friendly with a lot of the people. Mr. Ritter is a good friend of mine. I call him Mr. Ritter, but he was the son that grew up there, Ron Ritter, and he has some funny stories to tell about the gardens and His mother loved the gardens, but his mother's father was a gardener to Henry Ford and Claire Ford. And so when thinning out the gardens, he would bring some of the cuttings home, and then that's how our garden got so beautiful. We moved in 1960. I was in starting 6th grade. And I have a wonderful memory. I have lots of memories of the house, but I remember my mom, we got the key. It was a big black key to the front door. And we never used it because our house was never locked. All the years I lived there, we never locked the window, nothing. So we weren't afraid of anybody coming in. And everybody was very friendly and safe and honest back then, I guess. But I remember standing with my dad and all of us children, the 4 girls, went there to clean the house. My mother had to work that day. So when he opened up the door, he flung it open, and I said it was like a Christmas present. I was so excited to see our new house. It's the biggest house that we've ever lived in. And I love the idea of a farm. I love the idea of the property around it and the activities. It would be so much fun. And so we all ran through like a flock of little chickens, running upstairs and downstairs, checking out all the rooms and picking out our bedroom. And of course, my mom had already told us what bedroom we were going to have, but it was exciting to move in. And we cleaned the house really good. Of course, that's what we did for my mom. We were cleaners. So we cleaned the house really good from top to bottom. We swept, we mopped, we cleaned all the cabinets out. It was ready to move in the next day. And so we moved in. We made that our home. It had a bedroom. It had 4 bedrooms when we moved there. Originally, there was only 3. There was 4 bedrooms, and there were living room, dining room, 1 bathroom, and a kitchen, and the large basement. The property really was under 30 acres. It was owned by, at that time, it was sold to a company, and the company was 2 brothers and a sister, and she was to have the home and the outbuildings, and the men were going to rent out to the farmers the property. So we lived on about an acre, I think an acre, 1.8 acres or something, was the house and the outbuildings. And around the property, we were always privileged to have the wheat on one side, the corn on the back, and then the soybeans on the other side. So we didn't have to take care of it either. It was just beautiful. When you drove up the driveway, the barn was on the left-hand side, and where the quick oil change place is now. And then on the right was the wagon shed or whatever. It was like a garage, but it didn't have a door. And then attached to that was the corn crib. And then on the next side was a large chicken coop. And then we had the little milk house, which was my favorite. And the roof was sloped just like the house. So I always thought it was kind of cute. And around that was the gardens, and the center was the gardens. And we had rock garden with little hens and chicks. And then around the perimeter of the garden was daylilies and peonies, and there was a crabapple tree that I loved, and there were berries. So it was lush. It was really nice. I love the little gardens. If you talk to my family, they always all loved the garden. My mother was so excited to live on a farm. She grew up on a farm in Kentucky. So to have a farm of her own was so exciting. And to believe it, she loved that house. She took very good care of it as though she was preserving it. My mother had a flock of chickens, and she tended the garden. We had a long, narrow garden, and it was filled with all the vegetables of the day. And so we always had eggs, and then when the chickens stopped laying eggs, they became our Sunday dinner. I'm sorry. And then we had vegetables, always fresh vegetables, and I love it. I'm not a meat eater. I love it. I don't like meat, so I very seldom eat it. So vegetables was my go-to. So I always call that the summer dinner, when we could just have vegetables, no meat. I didn't even know we owned the barn for years, because it was we allowed the farm people that farmed the area to put their equipment in there. But we did venture into the barn. There was on one side there was cow stalls, and then the ladder went up to a 2-story hay loft, and that was fresh hay. And so that's very seldom did I go in the barn because I'm not one of those people. I'm a reader. I like the sun. So and behind that, oh, and I forgot to tell you, the house was on the right in front of the chicken coop, so it made like a circle. And then if you go back down the little path, you would go to a tractor bridge. And the tractor bridge was built by Mr. Ritter. It was Mr. Ritter's father, Elton Ritter. And he constructed it of wood and a metal base. And it held the weight of a tractor full of a wagon of corn. So it was well constructed. But it was our playground. It had a little creek that went underneath it that joined, the bridge joined the front and the back fields, farm fields. That was why it was built. And my summer activity was to sit on it and read my book. And we loved it. Once in a while, we would take a lunch and we would follow the creek towards Warren Road and see how far we could go to the horizon. Never found the end, got tired, got warm, moved back, walked down back so we didn't get lost because we were little. And then we would wade into the creek and get cool. And there was clay on the base of the creek, so we would make a little pottery and let it dry on the bridge. So the bridge was really important to us. I enjoyed on a hot day finding the tall grass and laying down flat and waiting for nature to walk by. I know that sounds boring, but it was a beautiful activity and I loved doing it. And if I was very patient, a family of quails would go by and I'd see the mother quail and her little chicks and I'd be very quiet. And that's one of my favorite. I love that memory so much. And we played, the kids, we all played. Our activities were homemade because, we were on a farm. So we would either play with the neighbor kids would come down and we'd play kick the can, or we would play hide and seek until it got dark. And then when it got dark, we'd collect fireflies. So that was exciting. We were always outside. Our house was, we had to clean the house. That was our activity, chore before we left to go play. We always cleaned the house. And Mom always cooked in the kitchen and served our dinner at the table in the dining room. We always ate in the dining room. There was always a baseball game going on. The boys, they didn't like the girls to play. We weren't very fast. We didn't know the game very well. So we played with our hula hoops, jacks, jump rope, dolls. And when we got a little older, I'd follow my sister down to a newly married young gal that wasn't too much older than my sister, and we'd watch soap operas and drink iced tea with them. But I was torn between playing dolls with my younger sisters and going and watch soap operas. I to this day, I don't like soap operas. So I don't know why, but it was just an activity. The Genesis Market was the hub of our community. I mean, it was, and it was a good place to go, first of all, to get what you needed in the store, because they carried a little bit of everything. They have a gas station, and then they had the grocery store. Above the grocery store was 2 full apartments, and that's where the Clark family lived. And Bev Clark was a year older than me, and she was my friend, but she never came out to play. I had to go into her house, and we read magazines and whatnot. She either was in her room, in the house. The lovely family, I love that family. The Clark family were very good Christians. I went to church with them. And or she was downstairs in hanging around the little store, and she ended up marrying Butch Dennis. Oh, I love my school, Gallimore Elementary School, James Gallimore on Sheldon. I just love that. In fact, I had my husband take me there, and I have photographs recently by the school. But yeah, I started 3rd grade there, and it was a delightful school. I learned a lot. I loved school. I made a lot of good friends, and we played on the playground. And today it still looks like the school I went to, minus the fences. So it has been added on to, but it's a beautiful school. I went to middle school east over on Mill Street, and then I went over to the old high school in downtown Plymouth. And it was an open campus, and we could that was the beauty of it. You could walk downtown, enjoy the park, and go back to school. The farmhouse, the Salt Box House, was located on Canton Center Road. It was on, it would be north of Ford Road and south of Warren Road, and that was our little community of farms. The community was close. Everybody knew everybody, not their business, but they knew of them. And if you needed something, you could go into like Dennis's Market. We got our school bus there, so it was we kind of like grew up in that store. We were treated very respectful if we were little kids buying candy. The proprietor, Cope Dennis at the time, and later as his son Butch took over. But we always felt comfortable going in. We would go in and you would hear the latest news. They'd ask when my brother was in Vietnam, everybody was always saying, "Have you heard from John? Is he all right?" And at that time, Butch Dennis was also in the service, but he was stateside. So he was not in the war itself. And my brother came home safely. We knew this area really well, and we did hay rides, of course, out this way. Mr. Grady Hargrove owned the farm just north of the store and near the school, little Bartlett school. And he would organize the teens to go on a hay ride. He would take his tractor, which he loved, and hitch it to his wagon and fill it full of hay, put lanterns on the back, and you had to be a teenager to go. And I was so excited when I turned 13. A lot of the kids, we were invited to go, and I remember it was my first date. Bobby Coppin on Ford Road invited me, and soon after that he moved, but he was a real sweet young man. And we went on our first date on the hay wagon, and we would go down the dirt roads, all the roads west of Canton Center at that time seemed to be dirt and gravel. And a lot of the neighbor kids would go and they'd have dates. It was date night. And a lot of those young men and women married. I know several of them did. So it was a really tight community. A lot of the community was that area. And then you go to Elmhurst and Ford. And now a lot of my classmates lived there, so I knew a lot of them. And after church, my dad allowed me to stay and visit with my friends. So that area was very familiar to me. My family left in 72, but I was the last of the older 5 children to live there. And I had my little brother, so we were pals. We played together, and I took him everywhere. I could drive, so I could take him everywhere. But I left the farm when I married. I married in 1971, and my parents moved the following year to Indiana. And I was really thrilled for her because she was going back to her family, and but I missed her dearly. Yeah, and my little brother, of course. My mother always said an old house it deteriorates when there's no family living there. As soon as we left, it deteriorated to the point where it was no longer livable, and the barn fell into itself. The little tractor bridge broke. The metal was even deteriorated, and the house was demolished. And I remember the day my sister called me and said, "Do you want to go see the house be torn down today?" And I go like, well, I've got a new baby, and it's cold. It was windy. I remember the weather being not where I want to take a baby out. So I declined. I wish I had. That was one of my regrets. But maybe I didn't want to see it tore down for one reason. Maybe I used that as an excuse. I don't know. I would love all the stores. When you were a kid, we had no stores. We had to travel really quite a distance to shop. Plymouth was our go-to, and we'd take a bus from Plymouth and go to the Wonderland Mall, and that was a big thing then. And then later Westland Mall was built, and I think that was 1965, and we were excited about that. What I love now is that our property is vacant, and I can walk it and go back and look around at the memories. And we've found a lot of little treasures. I remember finding a little wheel from my brother's in the driveway, a little wheel of one of his cars or trucks, and I took it home and I washed it up and I mailed it to him in Indiana with his birthday card, and he was so excited about that. So little treasures, you can't find them anymore, they're all gone, but they used to be there. So I enjoy that. Well, I've always, ever since I've moved away from Canton, we've always lived where there was barns and fields. Even though it's a subdivision, or, you know, like I live in a condo now, there's a big, huge barn behind us or to the side of us. We can take our golf cart and ride over and see it. So I love, and that's a gravel road. I love driving on gravel roads and walking them. They remind me of home.